Hi, my name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network. In Missouri, a couple weeks ago, they had their caucus, and in this caucus, there was the same kind of rigging, fraud, election stealing that we've seen across this country in this election season. And this one had somewhat of a happy ending, in at least in St. Charles County. You see, the GOP, as they've been doing across this country, as we've seen the governor of Iowa starting this whole mess, come out and say if Ron Paul is elected, if he wins the if he wins the nomination in Iowa, ignore it. Look at who came in second place. We've seen it since day one. Iowa, Maine, North Dakota, South Carolina, Nevada. Pick your state. Pick your state, and you will see Ron Paul show up there. When Ron Paul shows up there, thousands of supporters show up there. In fact, he can bring 4,000 people to an auditorium and only end up with 2,000 vote. Now, the mainstream media does a great job in explaining to you that these young people that support Ron Paul, they'll show up at events, rain, snow, they don't care. They'll stand outside because there's usually not enough room in the event center that Ron Paul is speaking at. They don't care. They'll stand outside in the cold, in the rain, in the dark at night so they can see somebody who's talking common sense, somebody who's truly concerned about their future. But when it comes to time for the vote, these young voters aren't showing up. They lack the enthusiasm. This is the message the mainstream media is trying to sell. Well, in Missouri, some more of these same shenanigans went on. Now, we had Eugene Dukes go ahead and break just about every rule of the GOP nominating process. Number one, he decided he was going to nominate a chairman at the St. Charles County caucus without throwing it to the floor to see if there was any nominees from the floor. You see, this is the whole idea. You have the caucus goers show up. This is the constituency. These are the people who are supposed to be represented. They are supposed to have a chance to nominate their choice. But he threw that rule out the window because it didn't suit him, because he might get a Ron Paul supporter. Secondly, he made a rule without it going to committee that no video could be taken at the event. Again, breaking the rules. Number three, he decided to end the event when it wasn't going his way with less than two-thirds of a majority. Now, one of the leading parliamentarians of the state of Missouri, Brent Stafford, saw what was going on and called it for what it was, fraudulent. So he moved the event, legally, moved the event from the auditorium to the parking lot, where he called for a roll call of people to come up and sign a registry and have a caucus, a legitimate caucus, that followed the rules of the nominating process. For his efforts, he was arrested, hauled off to jail, and charged a few days later with trespassing at a public school. Now, there was so much uproar over this, so much scrutiny over this, that the GOP had to rehold the St. Charles caucus. And when they did this, it was done by the numbers. And when the vote was put to the floor, if there was a nominee, well, of course, Brett Stafford, the same individual who was arrested, he became the chairman of the event. And because of this, over 150 delegates are now pledged to Ron Paul. I'll attach the videos to this, and please watch them, and please share them. As of right now, they've only got a couple hundred views each. They need to have thousands, millions of views to explain what's happening across this country. Our nation has underwent a complete and total banker takeover. There is no difference coming from the mainstream media. There is no difference coming from the so-called left or right. There is no difference of being brought to the American people. You're being led down a path that ends in destruction. And I don't care if you're listening to me and you're a NASCAR dad in the South, or you're a soccer mom in the North, or if you're living in a trailer park, or if you're living in a mansion. Your financial future has been stolen from you. Your liberty has been stolen from you. There is only one candidate that we have before us now that talks about what we need to do to truly restore a republic, truly restore representation in this country. That's Ron Paul. He's the one talking about ending these wars. Do you remember when George W. Bush was president? We had Code Pink on the news almost every single night. What happened to them? Did we end the wars? Did Obama come in there and do what he said he was going to do? Get out of these wars, close down Gitmo, stop us starting these illegal wars? No, we have more wars now than we did under Bush. But the coverage has changed because the agenda has changed. You see, the blame game is what we're all about. It isn't about fact and reality. It's about blaming one another. It's about finding the right target of opportunity and then exploiting that target for your own political agenda. Right now, we're going into an election cycle. Mitt Romney is the choice by the GOP. He is the one that will be the grand old party's nominee for president. We have him supported by who? Goldman Sachs, number one supporter. Who was the number one supporter of Barack Obama going against George W. Bush in 2008? It shouldn't shock you that it was Goldman Sachs. There is no difference between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. If you believe that, if you think that is true, then it is time for you to wake up and understand that everything that goes on before you in mainstream media, everything that's going on in Washington, D.C., is a con game meant to stir up anger in you against somebody else, one of your other fellow citizens of this country. So you will focus on them rather than the people who are ruining this nation, the people leading us off the cliff. Please understand that we don't have a lot of time left in this country. As the mainstream media reports to you the differences between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, for example, now if you go to Drudge Report yesterday, you had to read all about how Mitt Romney's wife has never worked a day in her life. If you go there today, you're going to hear all about how Barack Obama wants to take your guns. Do you understand what's happening? They're trying to pit a so-called left against a so-called right so that we're not paying attention to what's going on. And what's going on is the end of the United States of America. Right now, as I'm making this video, we have Russian troops working their way towards the Iranian border because they're 100% convinced that we will be involved, along with Israel, on an attack with Iran. The expansion project, expansion of Empire America, will come to an end one way or another. We will either stop these despot dictators that we call representatives. We will stop them through a process of protest and legal replacement, or we will let them lead us off the cliff, and we will become nothing more than the despot nations that we are allegedly out to destroy. Stories are attached. That's all I got.